All right. So today, first thing that I want to look into is bit more of matrices. Specifically, I want to focus upon how to test if a matrix is positive, definite or not. This is the uh, this is the crux of the problem that in a step-by-step fashion I want to approach. Is- Usually we'll be dealing with symmetric positive uh, matrices. So first of all, you recall the definition of positive definite matrices. It is that x transpose Ax is greater than 0 for all x not equal to 0. This is when we say that a matrix is positive definite. Now suppose that it's, it's just a connection that I am giving you. Suppose that A is not symmetric. How much do I lose really if I just restrict to positive definite matrices? I'm trying to tell you that I don't lose much. Suppose that A is not symmetric, then what? So now look at the transpose of it. If A is positive definite matrix, A transpose is also positive definite matrix. Because if I transpose x transpose, this x comes here as x transpose, this x transpose becomes x here, a becomes a transpose, and everything being a scalar, a is an n cross n matrix. In this case, x is coming from Rn and a is a real n cross n matrix. So x transpose a transpose x is also greater than 0. Now you just add the two and look at their mean. So x transpose A transpose plus A by 2 times of x is also greater than 0 for all x not equal to 0. For all x in Rn not equal to 0. So therefore, if A is not symmetric, all you need to do is take A plus A transpose by 2, and this is a symmetric matrix. And then whatever I am teaching you, you can, whatever I am teaching you for symmetric matrices, you can apply it to uh, test the positive definiteness here. In optimization, we are mainly concerned with uh, Hessian matrices. What are Hessian matrices? Do you recall? Del square f by del x square n cross n matrices, which are anyway symmetric. So therefore, straight away, whatever I teach you for testing positive definiteness of a symmetric matrix applies in toto to to the uh, uh, to the uh, to the optimization problems, the Hessian matrix in particular. Okay, let's go back a bit. First of all, we are looking at vector space Rn. Okay, why do I call this as a vector space? Why do I call this as a vector space? Because uh, because two things. If I take x a vector in Rn, y another vector in Rn, and I add the two, then the resulting vector is also in Rn, and hence I say that it is closed. Second, if I take scale this vector in Rn, if I scale this vector in Rn, that is, I look at alpha times of x, where alpha is a scalar, a real number, then alpha x is also in Rn. So therefore, it is basically closed under both scaling and addition. It's closed under both scaling, multiplication by a scalar, and addition, and hence it constitutes a vector space. So this vector space in general can have subspaces. For example, if I just say in a n vector x1, x2 and so on, say I go up to xk and set all of the lower ones to 0, will this be a subspace? Answer is yes, because if I take two such vectors, if I take two such vectors and add them, in them also everything below k plus 1 to n will be 0. And then if I scale it up also, just as I was telling you now, if I scale it up also, scaling will also constitute a vector in which the first k elements could be non-zero. Some of them could be zero, I have no problem to that. The remaining ones, however, compulsorily remain zero. So subspaces can come in many ways. This is just a structurally a nice simple subspace that I just showed you in this particular case. In usually we are interested in two subspaces, which I will come to later on, called range space and null space. These are two subspaces which are very important to us. But right now, just to give you this idea of subspace, this was a nice simple example. Now, uh, if I look at set of, I'm sorry, if I, oh Baba, if I look at uh, set of all m cross n real matrices, question, is it a vector space? Answer is yes, of course. Why not? Because let's say you take 5 cross 3, all real 5 cross 3 matrices, okay? Now you take A matrix from there, you take B matrix from there, and you add it, you get C. The C is also a 5 cross 3 matrix, is it not? And if I scale this by, let's say, alpha, a scalar, this alpha times of A matrix that I am going to get is also a 5 cross 3 matrix, is it not? So therefore, closed under addition, closed under scalar multiplication, right? Closed under addition and closed under scalar multiplication. Hence, this is also a vector space. Okay. Now, I also look at another important concept that I use is that when I multiply a, let's say, a m cross n matrix and a n cross 1 vector, all of course real, uh, then when I multiply this x vector by a matrix m cross n matrix, I transform it into a vector y, which is m cross 1. So A is a real m cross n matrix, x is a vector n cross 1, and y is a vector in Rm. So I can look at this pre-multiplication as a transformation of x vector to a y, and this transformation I call it as a linear transformation. Why do I call it as a linear transformation? A linear transformation will have a property that if I take x vector and a, let's say, don't confuse this with this y vector. I will write x bar vector here and y bar vector here. These are vectors in Rn. Then if I take the linear, if T is a linear transformation, T is a linear transformation by definition, this should be equal to T of x bar plus T of y bar. Okay. Now these are vectors in Rm. In our case, these are vectors in Rm. So they are vectors in Rm, but this should happen. Now look at A as a linear transformation, and the other thing that should happen is T times of alpha x should become equal to alpha times of T of x. So I can generalize the definition of linear transformation as if alpha and beta are scalars and x and y are vectors in Rn, then this superposition property should hold. This is what I call it as a linear transformation. So now look at the A matrix and see if it is a linear transformation. You can easily see that this is same as alpha times of AX plus beta times of AY, which is same as, but alpha times of alpha, this is what I am defining as the transformation of T of X to Y, pre-multiplication by the matrix A is what I am defining as a transformation from X to Y. So therefore, I have got this as alpha times of Tx plus beta times of T of Y, which is to say, so, and this is transformation on the left hand side, alpha x plus b of y, which is to say that this indeed is a is a linear transformation. So a pre-multiplication by a matrix is a linear transformation from Rn to Rm. What if, what happens if matrix is square? If the matrix is square, that is A is a n cross n matrix, then it becomes a transformation from Rn to Rn. Again, it becomes a transformation from Rn to Rn. Now, vector spaces will always have a vector spaces will always have a zero vector. A zero vector is one which is that when you add it to any vector in the vector space, the same vector is retained. Hence, it will have also a minus of x vector, so that x plus minus x is also equal to uh, is is also equal to 0. And these are, of course, this is a zero vector, but when you multiply a vector by a zero scalar, then the resulting vector will also be a zero vector. So I am putting this something below the zero to indicate that it is a vector and this zero is a scalar, because here you can have a confusion between this and this. Okay. Now, in case of R m cross n, you have a zero matrix, is it not? And you have the inverse element of A, which is minus of A, which is zero. This is the inverse element in the. This is the inverse element in the vector space of R m cross n. Okay. This should not be confused with A inverse. That's entirely different thing. Okay. This A inverse, this A inverse is actually to be connected with the right thing to ask the question regarding A inverse is that is the transformation T, the linear transformation T, invertible? That's the question that is. So when we talk of A and A inverse, it is about whether your linear transformation T is invertible or not. Okay. So what do you mean by invertible transformation? If T of alpha x is equal to y, then it means that if there is an invertible transformation, so x takes maps to y in general from Rm to, sorry, Rn to Rm. If there is a invertible this is your action T. If T inverse exists, this need not exist, mind you, not necessary, even with linear transformations. Then T inverse of y will give as x, but is not, but this need not compulsorily exist. I'll give you an example. Let's take A to be a 1 cross 2 matrix. Okay, 1 and 1, a 1 cross 2 matrix. Now take a vector x in that as uh, let's take a vector as 1 and minus 1. So where does Ax go? Ax goes to 0. Now let me take vector y as 2 minus 2. Where does Ay go? It also goes to 0. So from this 0, if I want to return back, I did this, reach 0. From 0, I want to return back to this. But can I return back necessarily? I don't know. I could have, this could have been a vector, this could have been a vector, it could have been 3 minus 3 also a vector. So therefore, it is, this transformation is not what you say as one transformation. Many x, y are going to this particular vector 0 vector here. And 0 is not something very special. Let's say that, for example, you can choose x as 1 1. Then what is ax? 2. Now take y as 2 0, and then say another z vector as 0 2. Even for them, you will get ay to be 2 and az to be 2. So given that the right hand side is 2, can you say that can you from this information of 2, does it contain enough information for you to tell that it came from which vector, 1 1 or 2 0 or 0 2? This is not codified in this particular, this is not adequately codified in this transformation matrix A, or the linear transformation designated by A. So therefore, we say that such a mapping is not 1 1, and this transformation is not invertible. So the point that I am trying to tell you is that invertible transformations require two things. One is that the mapping should be 1 1, and another thing is it should also be on 2. That is, it should not happen. So there is a one-to-one correspondence between x and y here. For everywhere a vector y, every vector y here, there has to be a corresponding this thing here. If there is any vector y sitting here such that there is no vector x also here, then also the inverse will not exist. So therefore, when we talk of invertible transformations with respect to matrices, we have to restrict to square matrices only. We have to restrict, because we want 1 1 as well as on 2, we have to restrict to square matrices only. So invertible matrices, usually when we are dealing with, we talk of n cross n matrix, and the question really is, if Ax is equal to y, then does there exist, this is the question, does there exist A inverse so that you can write x is equal to A inverse of y? This is the question that we are asking. So in our case, in our discussion, invertible linear transformations imply inverse of matrix A, which is of course has to be a n cross n matrix. And not all n cross n matrices are invertible. For example, take in the case of 2 by 2 matrix, example 2 by 2 matrix, take 0 cross 1. This is not a invertible. This is not a invertible matrix, and hence, remember that you should never write A inverse unless you are sure that your A matrix is invertible. This you should be very sure. Why is this matrix not invertible? Simple, because if you take 1 0, take the uh, take the vector x, which is 1 0, and multiply it by a. Where does it go? 0 0. Now take a vector a which is 2 0. Where does it go? 0 0. So given that this is a 0 0 vector, can you say that from which one it comes? It doesn't. You cannot actually tell from where this vector came. This is usually the test for checking whether your transformation is invertible or not. If you have tz is equal to 0, z not equal to 0, that's it. Then the linear transformation is not invertible. Why? Because if tx is equal to y, tx plus any alpha z, if it is a linear transformation, is equal to t of x, and so you don't have, you have many to one mapping. So you have many vectors mapping to this particular vector t of x, and hence no more invertibility criteria is satisfied. In simple matrices, so therefore when coming to square matrices, if az is equal to 0, z not equal to 0 vector, then we say that A is not invertible matrix, that is A inverse does not exist. Conversely, if for every z not equal to 0, az is not equal to 0, where A is a n cross n matrix, then A will be a invertible matrix. I am not immediately proving it, but just stating to you that A will be a invertible matrix. Okay. Now, for the time being, just let me continue with what I was doing, which is that when is A invertible and when is A not invertible. So let me first revisit uh, definition of eigenvalue and eigenvector. Okay, A is a real matrix. I say this is an eigenvector. We say that lambda is an eigenvalue and this is an eigenvector if A of x is equal to lambda of x. That means when I pre-multiply this by the matrix A, I am still retaining the same direction as x. Only this vector x will be scaled. That's all that is going to happen. Now this means that a minus lambda I times of x is going to be a zero vector is going to be a zero vector, and from here this is also apparent to us that if the matrix is singular, then there is some vector z not equal to 0 such that az is 0 times of z, which is 0, because 0 vector can always be written as 0 as z. So therefore singular matrices always have 0 as their eigenvalue. Conversely, non-singular or invertible, singular means which is not invertible, non-singular means which is invertible, matrix A has all non-zero eigenvalues. Okay. Now, if this happens, if this is what is happening, that a minus of lambda I times of x is equal to 0, then it essentially means that determinant of a minus lambda I also should be equal to 0. I mean to say that if matrix A is singular, and I'm not proving it, I'm assuming that this is a review lecture, so you know it, then determinant of A is 0. Conversely, if matrix A is non-singular or invertible, then its determinant is not equal to its determinant is not equal to 0. Okay, now, uh, so 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 in general, since this is the case, this is actually, if you treat this as s, if you take s as a variable, then this is actually called a characteristic polynomial set to 0. This is called a characteristic polynomial of matrix A, and it is a polynomial. If you expand it, it's a polynomial in uh, nth degree is a polynomial in nth degree, and hence eigenvalues are the roots of this characteristic polynomial. Okay, this is not the definition of eigenvalues. Okay, please understand that many times when I ask people question what is an eigenvalue, they say that it is the root of the characteristic polynomial. But that is not the definition of eigenvalue. When I say what is an eigenvalue, the right thing to say is that it is that scalar such that if a of x is equal to lambda of x, then lambda is the eigenvalue and x is the eigenvector. If you can find some vector x such that when transformed, that is a of x is done, the direction is not changed except for multiplication by a scalar, then that is what we call it as a eigenvalue eigenvector pair. The way to compute it is to write a correspond characteristic polynomial and then look at the roots. Now, by fundamental of theorem of algebra, we know that there will be n such roots, is it not? So by fundamental theorem of algebra, we know that there will be n such roots, and hence there will be n eigenvalues. And these values can repeat. Why can they repeat? Take simple A is equal to identity matrix, say 3 cross 3. What are its eigenvalues? What is its characteristic polynomial? S minus 1 cube equal to 0. What are its eigenroots? 1, 1 and 1. So therefore eigenvalue is repeating. 3 times the 1 is repeating. What are the basic eigenvectors? E1, 1, 0, 0. A times of E1 is 1 times of E1. This is the first column of identity matrix, second column of identity matrix, third column of identity matrix. Each of them are eigenvectors, and each one of them are eigenvectors, and length of each of these eigenvectors is, second norm of each of this is 1. In general, whenever I say eigenvalue and eigenvector, I assume that its length is 1. Why? Because if Ax is, suppose V is an eigenvector and this is lambda V. Now I multiply this by some alpha, eigenvector by some alpha, then I'll get lambda alpha V as the right hand side, which is basically nothing as saying that that if V is an eigenvector, alpha V is also an eigenvector with the same eigenvalue. So is the, what really does, how does it matter? They don't contain any new information, right? So therefore, for the sake of normalization, we usually restrict V vector to unit length in the Euclidean Euclidean norm. This is the standard convention that we follow. Now the next question: can eigenvalues be complex? Yes, why not? But but complex eigenvalues arrive only in pairs. That's all. I mean, that's the only important thing that you need to understand. So take a simple example. A is equal to 0, 0 and 1, 1. So what is Si minus A? S, let's take minus 1. And so Si minus of A will make this plus 1 and will make this as minus 1. So now what is its, what is the determinant of Si minus A? It's S square plus 1, and when you set it to 0, the characteristic polynomial, when you set it to 0, so what do you get? You get S to be equal to plus minus I, which is basically complex, is it not? Imaginary and therefore complex. So we get that in general eigenvalues can be complex, but whenever they are complex numbers, they will come in, uh, they will always come in, uh, they will always come come in pairs. It turns out, it turns out that if A is a real symmetric matrix, then all its eigenvalues will be real. It turns out that. I leave it to you to think about it. Right now, I am not going to spend my time on it. But therefore, if A is a real symmetric matrix, then in this number is always real. Could be 0, could be positive, could be negative, that's okay. But it is always going to be a real number. All right. Now, other thing is with that we have is that, let's say A is a symmetric matrix. I am restricting my discussion to symmetric matrices because Hessian matrix is symmetric. So that, and I am more worried about properties of the Hessian matrices basically in optimization course. So let's say that this is lambda 1, this is another eigenvalue, and lambda 1 and lambda 2 are two distinct eigenvalues. Then I can easily show that v1 and v2 vectors, and v1 and v2 vectors will also be real in this particular case. Okay, so I can always show that v1 and v2 vectors are perpendicular to each other. All right, now how do I prove it? I think right now I will not dive into that proof because I'm just summarizing the results at this point of time. But so I'll leave it at that. You just take it from me right now that these two vectors will be perpendicular to each other. Now, now further, for a symmetric A real, we can find n eigen vectors which are orthogonal to each other. In other words, they form the basis of vector space Rn. Okay, now I have used a new word basis here, so I will have to go back in I will have to go back in time, so to say, and bring out what is actually a basis. But before I do that, uh, let me just tell you what I mean here. I am saying that I will be lambda 1 v1. Some of these eigenvalues could repeat also. Okay, that means it's likely that lambda 1 and lambda 2 are same. This is possible. Okay, and so on up to a vn, lambda n vn, and I can do this in such a way that vi is perpendicular to vj when I is not equal to j. I is not equal to j. And when I put it in a matrix form, then what I mean to say is this can be written as this can be written as lambda 1, I'm sorry, very sorry, v1 v2 to vn times lambda 1 up to lambda n, which you expand it, then it is lambda 1 v1 lambda 2 v2 up to lambda n vn. That is when you individually map it. A v1 is lambda 1 v1, which is here. A v2 is lambda 2 v2, which is here, and avn is lambda n vn, which is here. So it is basically, this is nothing but a matrix. This is nothing but a matrix representation of this n equations. Now let's call this matrix, let's call this n cross n real matrix as V. This diagonal matrix of the eigenvectors lambda as a diagonal matrix lambda. Then we can write this as AV is equal to V lambda. AV is equal to V lambda. Now, by my nomenclature, by my convention, length of each of these vi vectors is 1. Okay, and vi is perpendicular to vj. So therefore, v is a orthogonal matrix. Further, you can easily check that V transpose V is identity. Orthogonal matrices always have their transpose as their inverse. This is essentially V transpose is equal to essentially V inverse. Is it not? Because when you look at V transpose V, I think I have done this earlier. When you look at V transpose V, then it has its I comma I entry is going to be the square of the length of Vi, which is 1, and I comma j entry is going to be equal to the Vi transpose Vj, which is 0 when I is not equal to j, and therefore V transpose V is equal to identity matrix, in which case we say that the transpose is the essentially the inverse of this particular matrix. So in other words, I multiply this, and once inverse is established, then we know that A inverse is equal to A inverse A is equal to identity. So this is also a result from matrix algebra that I am assuming that you know about the invertible matrices. So therefore, I can write now, multiplying on the right hand side both of these matrices by V transpose. For symmetric matrices A, I can write this as a, a beautiful uh, decomposition I get, eigenvalue decomposition I get, spec spectral eigenvalues are also sometimes called as the spectra or the spectral decomposition that I get, which is that A is equal to V sigma V transpose, where this lambda I is nothing but, I'm sorry, where this lambda is the diagonal matrix is nothing but the diagonal matrix of eigenvalues, and V is a orthogonal matrix, is a orthogonal matrix. Now, therefore, you can also see that A transpose V is the diagonal matrix lambda 1, lambda 2 to lambda n. Okay, now question. If A is a positive definite matrix, what can you say about its eigenvalues? Okay, let's say that AV is equal to lambda V, because lambda is an eigenvalue, multiply it by V transpose. So V transpose is equal to lambda V transpose V, which is equal to lambda. V transpose V is 1 in my case, even if it is otherwise it is some positive number. Now, because A is a positive definite matrix, what is this V transpose AV? This has to be strictly greater than 0. So, therefore, A is a positive definite matrix, symmetric positive definite matrix, if and only if all its eigenvalues are positive. Second, A is a positive semi-definite matrix if and only if all its eigenvalues are greater than or equal to 0. Then what further can you say? If A is a negative definite matrix, if and only if all its values are negative, A is a negative semi-definite matrix if and only if all the lambdas i's are less than or equal to less than or equal to 0. Now, now, before I close this lecture, I have connected positive definite matrices to eigenvalues very clearly now in this particular case. Just before I close, I just want to say one more thing, that positive definite symmetric positive definite matrices also have a square root called a of half, e to the power of half. How do I show that? So, so this is like introducing the concept that do you have a square root of a matrix, and that only is possible with positive definite or semi-definite matrices. So A is this for a symmetric matrix. Now assume that A is positive definite, then all these diagonal values, the eigenvalues are greater than 0. So therefore, write this as square root of lambda 1, square root of lambda 2 up to square root of lambda n into the same matrix again, lambda 1 to the power half, lambda 2 to the power half, and so on. Why? Because uh, because ASPD, symmetric means all lambda i's are greater than 0. So then I am going to call this matrix, I am going to call this matrix as lambda to the power half matrix. So I am going to write this as P lambda to the power half into lambda to the power half into P transpose. But P transpose P is an identity matrix, n cross n identity matrix. So I can introduce it here in between and write this as follows. And then I am going to group this matrix and this matrix. These are two n cross n matrices that I am going to group and call these matrices as a to the power half into a to the power half matrices. So therefore a positive symmetric positive definite matrix can be also has a square root in which a to the power half has eigenvalues which are under root of lambda I being eigenvalue of A and same eigenvectors. Therefore, what happens when I say X transpose AX and A is symmetric, A of half is also symmetric, I can write this as, which is X transpose, because by the symmetry of it I can also write it as this, which is same as square of the length of A of X, which is always greater than or equal to 0, because this is also a positive definite matrix. Anyway, I think we have connected at least positive definite matrices to eigenvalues today and shown that positive definite a matrix is positive definite. To conclude, we have at least shown today important property of proper positive definite matrices. A is symmetric positive definite if and only if its all eigenvalues are greater than 0. We will take a break here. Thank you.